Recently, I heard Shopify described as a low-code platform, meaning that it's not a 100% no-code platform, but for merchants using Shopify, it does its best to be one. But unlike other platforms that might not let you touch the code of your website at all, Shopify has built an entire developer ecosystem around their platform so that you get the best of both worlds. When it comes specifically to building a storefront, Shopify provides something called the Online Store Editor. It's a no-code user interface for you to build your website, but at the same time, all of the code used to generate these sections, blocks, and settings is exposed within the theme, meaning that a developer can still access and edit these elements at the code level. What this means is that the possibilities are near endless for customizing your storefront via customizing the code directly, but it also means that you shouldn't necessarily need to know how to code to still get a lot out of your Shopify theme. In this video and the next one on Sidekick, Shopify's own AI assistant, I'm going to share with you how to build a storefront without a developer, and at the same time, explain when it might be time to get one on board. Let's get started.
All right, so this right here is the Online Store Editor. It is the user interface that we use to customize our theme and therefore our storefront. As you should know on Shopify, a theme is basically a design template for your Shopify store. How I got here, just to backtrack a little bit, from the home page, I went to the online store sales channel, which automatically opens up the themes section. And I only have one theme installed right here, which is Horizon, which is currently the default theme at the time of recording. Okay, so in order to enter the online store editor of any theme, all I have to do is look at that theme and click Edit Theme. This button used to be called Customize, but recently was changed to Edit Theme. And now I have this user interface to build my storefront. Now, how it works is that we have all of this demo content here, which we are supposed to either replace, remove, or add to. Okay, over on my left here, I have my sections. Shopify is built on a system of templates and sections. So right now I'm on the homepage template. I can go up here to change the template. And so I can change the template for my product pages, my collection pages, my pages, and blog posts, so on and so forth. All right. So in this video, we're just going to be looking at the single template of the homepage and possibly the product page. But over here, you can now see that we've got our sections tab. We've got our theme settings. These settings relate to the overall theme. And then we've got our app beds. If a particular app has an integration within your Shopify theme, we can turn that off and on via app embeds here. But let's head back to our sections here. And what you can see is there's three groups. So we've got our header group, our main template, and our footer. Now, the reason why we have groups now in Shopify, this changed a few years ago, is because the header and the footer typically stay the same. So if I go to another template, for example, let's just go over to our default product template, you can see that the header group is the exact same. The only thing changing here is the sections within the template. Okay, back to our homepage here, you can see within any of these groups, whether it be the template, the header group, or the footer group, I can add a section. And if I click here to add a section, some of these lists are restricted based on where you're adding from. So I'm going to click here to get the full list. And here you can see within the theme that we're currently running, which is Horizon, Shopify's default theme at the time of recording, we have all of these different sections that are pre-built within the theme that we can bring into our storefront. And with so many of them, they are now grouped into different groups. If I hover over them, if a preset has been set on them, then you will see a little preview to the right of my cursor of what it might look like. So you can browse the different sections that you can use to build your storefront. So right here is where you can bring your vision to life. Whether you want to be inspired by the existing sections here, maybe you scroll down to one of these sections and you think to yourself, okay, that seems like a good idea for my particular product. And you kind of let the existing sections within the theme move you in a certain direction in terms of design. But usually the way I work as a developer, the design is already pre-thought out. What I mean by that is that I'm presented with a particular design file that shows me exactly how the website is supposed to look. So I'm going to switch over to my other desktop here and go over to Figma, which is the industry standard program for creating designs. I want to obviously give credit to the original developer here, but I can go on this tab right here and you can see a design of what the website is supposed to look like. Now, as a developer, I would just develop this from scratch to make it look exactly like the design. And that's what I did actually in my responsive web development course. So on the odd chance you do want to learn how to code a design from scratch using code, you can check out this module on my website, shopifythemedeveloper.com. Otherwise, here is the result. As you can see, maybe there's a few pixels difference, but here you can see that this is completely responsive. It's going to work on every screen size, and it's all custom built according to the design, okay? This is not actually a Shopify website. This is all static content, but this can be translated into a Shopify template if we need to. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to use this particular design or mock-up as our design to build within Shopify. So like I mentioned before, you can just go through the sections and think willy-nilly about, oh, okay, what do I want to add here? Maybe I throw this in and not really plan it ahead of time. But I think it's a much better approach to plan your design ahead of time. Maybe you don't need to create a whole high fidelity Figma design for this, but at least draw it out, sketch it out, mock it up, however you want to call it. Just put something on paper or put something down in a document that roughly covers what you want, where the images are going to go, what sections you're going to use, okay? In our case, we've got this high fidelity design, and in this video, I'm going to try and make at least I think in my version, we did this section, the hero section, we did this logo list, this featured collection section, and then this dress by style sort of collage section, okay? So let's try and recreate that on our store. Now, one of the things we can do is we can start from the default theme. We can start from Horizon, or we can browse the Shopify App Store for a better starting point. So I'm going to click here to visit the theme store. And as you can see, the ones presented to us at the top are all paid themes. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, why would I pay for a theme when there's ones that are free? These paid themes are way more featured. They have a lot more sections into them. The sections are better. It's definitely a case of you get what you pay for. At the top here, you can see all of the themes suggested to us have a price tag of anywhere from $200 to $400 USD. And these themes with a price tag are what's known as premium themes. But you may be wondering why you'd want to pay for a theme when there are free options available, because I can just go over here, filter by free, and you see there are some free options available. All of these free themes are going to have less pre-built sections available. They're going to have less options, and their design and features are going to be a bit more basic, okay? For the purpose of this video, let's just go with whatever free design matches most closely with our vision. And I say vision because it might be in your head, it might be on a Figma design. In our case, it's on a Figma design right here. So we're looking for which theme matches as close as possible to our desired end result, okay? Of course, it makes sense to bring our starting point as close to our desired endpoint as possible. Okay, so I've spotted this one. This one kind of looks similar. We've got like a flat design. There isn't a lot of colors. So let's just click try theme, and it's going to install this directly into our store. I believe that if it is a paid theme, you'll get a trial version for you to use, and you can play around with it. But in order to edit the code and publish it to your store properly, you're going to need to pay for it. In this case, it's a free theme, so no need to pay. Here you can see we only had the one theme before, Horizon, but now we have a new theme added to our theme library. So let's go ahead and click Edit Theme on this one, and let's try and match our Figma design. Now, one thing I haven't yet mentioned is that I have preloaded some data into our store. So what I've done is I've added some products. I did that previously. Pretty simple process. It's all just data entry. We put in these different products. I'll show you a video on your screen now of me doing that. The second thing I did was set these up in a collection. Collections are basically just groups of products in Shopify if you weren't already aware. For this new arrivals collection, I just manually added them, but you can obviously set a condition based on some data point of the products to automatically be added to a collection. And the other thing I did was in my content section under files, I've already uploaded all the images that we're going to be using to recreate the design that we saw in Figma. Okay, so heading back to our online store editor for that particular theme right here, I'm going to focus on the actual template content and not try and edit the header and footer. Okay, so we do want a featured collection, but before that, if we go back to the design, we have this hero section. So I'm going to try and find a section within this spotlight theme that matches as close as possible to what I'm aiming for here. Okay, so I'm going to click add a section, and then I'm going to look through the list. As you can see with this particular theme of Spotlight, it's a bit more bare bones than even Horizon, which we looked at before. Horizon is sort of the flagship free theme. So if you're looking for the most amount of options, you probably should just choose Horizon. But let's try and find one within Spotlight that matches what we're looking for. And I think this one has all the elements. They're not perfectly positioned the way we had in the Figma design, but let's just go with that and see if we can use the options within the section to customize it the way we want. So as you're able to see, this is a section with 3 blocks inside, and I'm able to click and drag to reorder these sections and blocks. So I'm going to reorder these blocks and these sections. So I'm going to put that section up the top. A new feature within Shopify is now I can rename this. So I can call it Hero. That might be a little bit easier for us in the admin to understand what this is, but it has the negative side effect of us not knowing what section exactly that was from the theme. But if we wanted to create a similar section, we can always just duplicate that section. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my image. I've got the image from the design here. And if we remember from the design, it had the image second. So I'm going to change the placement of that. Okay, great. The height of the section is going to adapt to the image. I'm fine with that. I can add an animation if I want. And essentially what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to move these settings around to get as close to my desired look as possible. So I'm going to reduce the padding completely to 0 so that the top and bottom of the image hits the top and bottom edges of the section. And I'm going to set the alignment of the content to, no, not center, but I'm going to put the position to middle. Okay, let's have a look at how that looks on mobile by clicking over here. Okay, not bad. But with our button, you can see that the color is not exactly what we're looking for. This section is using the color scheme 1. So I'm going to go in and edit that color scheme. I don't want to use yellow here. I'm going to use the solid background for the button of complete black. And then obviously I'm going to need to change the button label to complete white or something that has a little bit more contrast. I want all the colors to be just plain black. So I'm going to adjust all of these. Maybe I leave the text. Nah, I'm going to change the text to be complete black as well. And that's going to edit my color scheme 1. Now you'll see that the button label is still gray, and that's the disabled state because we haven't actually linked this button to anywhere. So I'm going to go to collections and just link it to the new arrivals collection. Now you'll see the button changes its style to what we set. Obviously the button label text, we don't want to be button label. So here we can put in our custom content. So if I look over to the intended design, maybe I'll go over here to the actual Figma. The button text was shop now. So I can just easily replace the button text via the existing block settings with shop now. I'll go to this text area and I'll just copy the text here and paste that over here. We can change the style to subtitle, which is not any better. So I'll just leave it on body. And then the heading, obviously we don't want it to be image with text. So we'd take find clothes that match your style. Okay, put that in there. As you can see, it's bolded it, and we can choose to make the heading style bigger or smaller. I think medium's fine, but one thing you'll notice is that the fonts aren't correct. Our overall font settings or typography settings can be found in the theme settings. So we'll go to typography, and I'm going to change the heading font to Impact, or I thought it was Impact. Anton, sorry. is what I'm looking for. And then I'm going to change the body font to, let's say, Almarai. All right. So I think that's a bit more on point now. You can obviously choose from any of these pre-installed fonts on Shopify, but to install your own font, unfortunately, you're going to require a developer for that. So if you do need to install a custom font, let me know, but unfortunately, a custom font cannot be selected via these typography settings. Okay. All right. So now we've got a section. It doesn't look exactly like our design over here, and we don't have this section right here, but we're kind of a little bit of the way there. Let's have a quick look to see if we can add in another block that we could put under the button that could possibly match this element right here. And unfortunately, the only block that we can add is this caption, which is basically like just a little line of text. And if I go to my overall section settings, there's nothing in here to add an element like that. So that is kind of as far as we can go with the options available in this particular theme. And just on that topic, I want to really bring it home that it all depends on the theme. As you saw before, when we went through the list of sections on Horizon, there was a much bigger list. Theme settings have some standard best practice, but these can differ as well. It all depends on what theme you're running. The benefit of creating a custom theme is that you can add completely bespoke sections. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit save on this, and I'm going to show you an example from one of my clients. This is a website I built called Best of the Bone. Looks a bit squished here on that screen size, but as you can see here, we've got our different sections here, and this is actually built off of, I believe, Dawn. But most of the sections here are custom, and I've differentiated the custom sections from the existing sections within the theme by adding the prefix of BOTB, which is Best of the Bone. And as you can see, all of these custom sections, they may be custom built by a developer, i.e. myself, but one of the things that a developer can do, and one of the things that a developer has done in order to produce this, is they can add in settings to the online store editor. So as you can see here, I can change this text right here and this image. For this particular featured collection right here, I can change the collection to be something else. If I didn't like the words bestsellers, I could say something else like shop our bestsellers perhaps. So a good developer is not only going to build something completely custom with code, but he or she is also going to build in some of these options so that you can edit these sections later. You can think of this as custom section development. But of course, this video is about what you can achieve without a developer. So let's get back to that and see how far we can get without using a developer or AI, which is what we'll do in the next video. So in order for the next section, we've already got our featured collection down here already in our theme, but we'll update that a little bit more probably, is this logo list right here. So what I'm going to do for that is look through the available sections within my theme again, and let's try and find something that will allow us to achieve that look. Looks like there's nothing specific to a logo list, but maybe this multi-column section could suffice. So I'm going to bring that up. I'm going to delete the existing columns, and we don't need a title. So I'm going to get rid of that from the section settings. And we also don't need a button. So as you can see here, usually if we just remove the value, that will remove the element completely. And then what I'm going to do is actually the background was black. So we don't have an option here to specifically change the background, but we can change the color scheme. I believe this one will give us a black background. Okay, great. And the reason why we want a black background is because we're going to be adding white logos. So in our first block, I'm going to add in, what was the first logo? Versace. Yeah. So I'm going to add in Versace, and then I'm going to remove the other content in there. So obviously this block is designed to have a heading and a description, but if we just remove those values, we can remove those elements from the column and just go with the image. Obviously the image is a bit low res, so especially with it extending the full width of the page, we can definitely start to see that pixelation. In our design, we have a row of 5. So I'm going to set the columns to 5, and then let's add 4 more columns. These columns have a preset on them, so we just need to remove the default content each time. I believe the next one was Zara. So we're going to add in the Zara logo. And depending on what screen size you're currently viewing your website on, you might see some wrapping like we see now. If I was to open it up full screen, you can see now that they are aligning horizontally. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly, what was the next one? Gucci. I'm just going to go through and add our logo list right here. Add one more column, or maybe two more columns. Yeah, we just have Prada and Calvin Klein is our last one, removing all that other content. And if we do want these columns to be in different positions, we can click and drag them. And like I said, all of these blocks and sections can be renamed. So I can call this Versace, for example, so that we know which one we're clicking on. Or we can click on it here. We just can't click and drag within this part of the online store editor. Okay, again, it's wrapping because we're on a tight screen width here, but if we go to full screen, you can see it is going across the page. There's this weird padding above it. Maybe we can fix that with the theme settings. Yeah, maybe if I can reduce the padding down here, go back to here. Okay, maybe I just reduce the top padding to 0. Okay, that's not perfect. Let's reduce top to 28. Okay, that's about good enough. If we have a look on mobile, not ideal. If we see the mobile design of this website, you can see I'm just going to remove the red grid lines for this one. That's just a layout guide on Figma. But as you can see, there's a row of 3 and then there's a row of 2. So unfortunately, based on this section, we don't really have the option to do that. Actually, we can do columns of 2 on mobile. We can set it to carousel. Okay, and maybe based on what options the theme provides, maybe we change our vision, maybe we change our intended design because there's an element within the existing theme that allows us to do something that we hadn't considered. So we can do that as well, But this is basically the process. We can start to build our website with these pre-existing sections and we can customize them using the theme settings. I'm just going to finish up here by creating the last 2 sections. As you can see here, we've already got a featured collection section. So what do we have here? We just had the word new arrivals. So I'm going to add in here new arrivals, and that should add a heading at the top. Heading we want to be big, and does it have an option to put it in the center? It appears not, but we should have the option of increasing the padding above it, like such. And what else? We can change the image ratio. Basically, if you want, you can play around with this, but for this video, we're going to assume that we want it to be as close to the design as possible. As you can see, this section doesn't have any blocks. It's just pulling products from a collection, which right now is just products. So we'll pull it from the actual new arrivals collection. And currently it'll show up to 24 products. There is only 4 in the collection, but if there were more than 4, we could limit the amount showing to 4. Gonna hit save on that. Let's have a look at how it looks on mobile. Not bad. And then on full screen desktop. Okay. So we don't have the option to move this new arrivals into the center by the looks of things. And we can't really customize the product details here exactly like we have in our design. So that's about as far as we can go with the featured collection without using AI, which once again, we'll cover in the next video. But we'll go to add in this final section, which is probably going to be the most challenging. I'll go into this list here, and yeah, there's nothing really that is matching. If we go back to it over here, this browse by dress style section, even the sort of grid layout is a little bit complicated, but let's just try and get as close as possible to what we're looking for. So I'll put in the collage, what's the name of the collage? Browse by dress style, browse by dress style. Okay. And as you can see, there's a few different types of blocks. We've got an image block, a product block, and a collection block for this particular section. So let's just throw in 3 images. So we'll do the first one, casual. The next one was, if I put in another image block, formal. That was on the other side of that image. Then we're going to add in a 3rd image block of party. And here is kind of where I reach the limits because there's only 3 blocks allowed for this collage section. And for each of these blocks, there's not an option to add in a title. As I keep reiterating, this is based on the theme. The theme could be edited in order to allow an extra field here, but currently without digging into any code, this is as much as we can achieve with the online store editor, again, without touching any code. All right, so if we go to full screen, this is kind of where we end up. We've got our hero section here, our logo list section here, our featured collection, and our browse by dress style, which is kind of non-functional because each of these blocks really should link to certain collections on our store, but they don't. And at this point, essentially, if you wanted it to get to exactly the design right here, as we've done in the module from shopifythemedeveloper.com, you're going to need to write at least some custom code. That being said, there is a new feature within Shopify that allows you to make edits to your existing sections. So if we have a look here, we can ask for changes using Sidekick. And you might have noticed before that if I click on add block, maybe not on this hero section, but on most sections, actually this theme seems to be a old school one. But if we have a look at Horizon, for example, I'm going to leave this page and go to Horizon, which seems to be a little bit more modern than the Spotlight theme. If we go into add block on any of our sections here, there is this special button here for generate. We can go in here, describe what we want to build, and it'll create a custom block for us. And we can do this within an empty section to essentially create our own sections as well. So that's what we're going to cover in the next video. We're going to take our existing project right here, and we're going to see if we can get closer to our design using AI in the next video. And then I'll also show you this feature as well, where we can create a theme from scratch using AI. Obviously, there are currently limits to this, but we'll see how far we can get. There should be a link either on your screen in the description or to the right of this video to move on to the next video when it comes out. And in the meantime, if you do have something custom that you want built, you can always feel free to reach out to me. The contact link is in the description.